When it comes to XRP, there are quite a lot of things I'm really excited about. But if I had to name one thing that's really quite peculiar about Ripple/XRP, it would have to be the manipulation. I mean, very recently we had some interesting information with regards to Korea. Recently we were, for example, talking about the fact that Korea is the leading XRP market and has always sold XRP at a premium. And according to Alex, they shut down exchanges when the coup happened or the martial law came into place temporarily due to some crisis. We have since seen a correction in the XP price, and it's kind of funny that back in 2017, the XP bull run ended partially because CoinMarketCap removed the XRP pairs to the Korean won, making the price drop significantly. And that's also partially why XRP, for some people, hit $3.94 mentally, and for some other people only hit $3 and some others hit $3.50 because there was a lot of price difference on these exchanges because at the time it was going that crazy. It was just absurd times, really. But anyway, I wanted to add that this 7 year later time frame, I should say just this 7 years later, it's kind of like a similar playbook where again the XP price is being played around with a lot with, again, interestingly enough, Korean influences. Now, part of it was also Coinbase at the time. They said, hey, we are not going to list XRP, and that was also the day that things started falling. I'm going to say both of those occurred. And don't even get me started on the whole SEC debacle. This would take too much time to even go into how a lot of manipulation probably took place because of this whole SEC battle, all the things that didn't make sense with it, and still kind of doesn't make sense even right now. But over the last 24 hours, there have been a lot of pings from you guys over one specific issue. Now, make sure you press that like button if you're enjoying these videos, and let's start talking about it. Also, you know that I've been just sitting here, lights off for a bit, just enjoying the ambiance, because XRP is doing pretty well. Anyway, so there were a lot, and when I say a lot, I do mean a lot, of complaints and calls of manipulation over whatever happened here with Garlinghouse inside of the 60 Minutes interview. And at first, I was also hesitant to watch it because I kind of wanted to do it on stream. I thought it would be funny, but a lot of you guys were saying no because it was awful. I couldn't get it. But now I really do. Man, it really shines in quite a bright light. A lot of the manipulation and the strangeness of opinions that some of the regulators around us have. For example, there's one section I will show you just now that really just shows these people have no idea what they're talking about, and they're the ones making the rules. What? But I will quickly say, whatever I'm about to talk right now, part of it will have to come back for in another video, later today maybe, because when researching all of this, I realized XRP's role, these cryptos' roles in politics is so freaking huge. It's huge. It's actually 1/3 of the contributions to crypto. Anyway, it's just that abnormal, absurd, that it deserves some more attention with all that.
That's absolutely right.
So in your mind, is the message for any lawmaker looking to run for office that they have to take your industry seriously, fear your industry?
I think all citizens should want people in Congress, on the Senate and the House, who are going to look to how do we use technologies in a way to benefit citizens.
Best news for the crypto industry came at the top of the ticket.
The United States will be the crypto capital of the planet and the Bitcoin superpower of the world, and we'll get it done.
Here's what his choice for Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told Fox Business News.
Crypto is about freedom, and the crypto economy is here to stay.
Perhaps most significantly, this past week, Trump selected a new head of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Paul Atkins, a former SEC commissioner who's done some consulting for crypto companies, is expected to take a very different approach than Biden-era chair Gary Gensler, who filed more than 120 lawsuits against crypto companies.
And here's where everything starts with what I wanted to show you, right? The rest is just kind of to give you a little bit of context of things that are changing. Let's just quickly take a look at this, huh?
Gensler told the House Financial Services Committee,
I've never seen a field that's so non-compliant with laws written by Congress.
Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse says the SEC's approach was the main reason his company and two others created the biggest industry super PAC called Fairshake.
He then says that they created a company basically as a reaction to the war on crypto, which we've all seen. And then things get really interesting because some SEC spokesperson, we probably all know him, Mr. John. I had a discussion with him a while back. We didn't really see eye to eye, so I've kind of got my eyes out for the man. But anyway, just quickly take a little bit of a look at what the guy just said.
It was definitely a war on crypto.
John Reed Stark, former chief of internet enforcement at the SEC.
So I got a big red warning when trying to upload this video because it had a lot of big clips from the 60-minute interview. I'll just quickly summarize what this little piece of the video would have said. It's basically John Reed Stark saying, as far as these election results are concerned, the clear mandate is that the SEC needs to lay their hands off of crypto and that Trump's going to be the one to do that. And he basically says then that this for society is not good. Crypto is something that's discouraged. It's not something you're supposed to want to have. There's no utility. It's all just speculation. There's no balance sheet. And as the interview goes on with his party, his side, it becomes more and more clear that he's a little bit of a goof. So just straight off the bat, I guess some people just never really get it, huh?
Capital requirements, no licensure of the individuals involved, and there's no transparency into it. Zach?
I always like it when people say there's no transparency when it comes to crypto, because it's fully transparent, obviously. He then starts talking about all the crime possibilities that are now available because of crypto. And the way I kind of see this now is this interview, right? Even though I do like a lot of the underlying parts, because let's conclude here something. I do like some of the underlying parts of what Brad here was allowed to say. If I'm looking at the full-on story, right, it seems to be the way they try to pinpoint things from this, for example, this 15-minute section of it all. It's more towards, oh, this is what happened in the election. Oh, the election was heavily manipulated because of crypto. Here's all the crime possibilities. You guys made an agency or a middleman company because of all the fraud or something like that going on at the SEC. But the SEC is only doing a good job because there's so much shenanigans going on. I don't know why they would ever let this previous man speak. Like this guy, like why? What was he allowed to do? This, whatever he's saying is so wrong. Why did they let that air? And now, because again, I just want to kind of get it over with here. There's a battle between Brad explaining, hey, I went to Harvard Business School. I know what a freaking security is. We spent $150 million on it. And then again, Mr. John Reed Stark comes back in to say, well, obviously it's a security. And even says it's an obvious one, right? And I keep thinking about it. And then Brad comes in beautifully saying, hey, we don't want to actually step out of the box. We don't want to say, hey, don't regulate us. We want to say, regulate us now and properly to make sure nobody can do things wrong, which was a very big part of XRP's spiel. That they're not trying to be outside the box, they're trying to be in the box, but let them fit in. Anyway, what I noticed here from watching, again, is just how peculiar these statements are. When you start looking at Gary Gensler, when you start looking at John Reed Stark, what's funny what they fail to mention? It's like, well, what exactly makes it a security? You might say, oh, the Howey test. Oh. But really, even in this whole interview, I've only heard them saying, oh, it's so obvious. Oh, it's so easy. Remember that Coinbase, Ripple, all these guys, they never really said, hey, we think you're completely wrong in every aspect. We just said, whatever you're defining as security, these boxes don't fit. They're not trying to say, just stay away from us, never sue us again for anything. Obviously, that's what they want. It's more a matter of whatever they're alleging just doesn't make sense because nobody can understand why. I looked at this Ripple case for so many hours, you don't even want to know. And even I didn't know much about security law beforehand. I looked at it thinking, why would this be true if it's clearly something completely else? They're like, oh, but the Howey test, it stands the realms of time. I mean, like, well, it was made like 90 years ago. There's a good chance that some of the rules that were logical back then don't really apply to digital currencies from this era. We even call them currencies for a good reason. The SEC refuses to change, blah, blah, blah. And I kept thinking, maybe really, I'm watching this interview as well, they just what could be their goal, really? And I really asked myself this. For saying this about these cryptocurrencies, is it really from the SEC side just to get money? Is it because they want things to be pushed down? Because why then would they not go after Ethereum more properly? Why would they now again go after BNB, for example? Coinbase posted it earlier. Why would they not go ahead and give Coinbase clear rules about everything? Because that's all they've been asking. Give us a clear rule book, but they don't want to do that. And I keep thinking, why do they want these things to be down so bad? And again, you might say, Dusty, they just want to protect investors. Yeah, but by suing Ripple, the investors lost way more than all the big the big guys behind it. No, the retail investors, the real people the SEC is supposed to protect, those were the real ones who lost it because they bought quite high. These institutions that were buying it from Ripple, what the whole case is about, for the most part, they were all able to buy pretty cheap. So from that perspective, what in the world is going on here? And I kind of expected this interview to be more of a showcase of some of the perhaps corruption and whatnot, but it's more actually a duality. On the one hand, saying the regulators really think this, but the crypto guys really think this. But a lot of emphasis is being put on the fact that these regulators are calling it out for saying it's all a big scam. They don't really do a good job in showing the contradictions to whatever they're saying. That's sad. But anyway, overall, I don't think it's actually bad, because when I listen to it, when I do, for the most part, a lot of the stuff that I'm hearing is just Brad just spitting facts. It just keeps saying the right things at the right time, saying, hey, you know what? This Bitcoin ETF was the most successful ETF ever. The rules, we're not trying to have no rules. We're trying to have rules. They just don't want to give them, yada, yada, yada. But there's such a big part of this, which is just the SEC, ex-SEC member just rambling on about how crypto is so bad. And in my opinion, it takes away a lot of the good from whatever he could have said if it was more of an open discussion, which I know 60 Minutes is not in the habit of doing. But I'm just saying, from me watching this, if I was not really aware that let's say I was not really aware of Ripple or XRP that much, I would have watched this becoming more skeptical of crypto now and how they're trying to manipulate the election. Because again, I'll talk about that later in another video. But a big part of it is just saying, hey, it doesn't, this is the SEC again, it doesn't support to be anti-crypto in the election or whatever, because you're not going to get contributions, not going to get money. And it takes away a lot of the message of how good is crypto. And for that reason, a lot of them are also in the election trying to be part of that, because there's a whole new wave of evolution in the finance space, tech space. But again, this title here is Crypto Cash Flooded the Election. Here's why and the impact it may have. That's the little title here. But I think a big reason of the why is because of the future of tech, but they're keeping that away. They're mostly saying it's all manipulation tactics, all selfish tactics, which politics at the end of the day is for the most part anyway. Let me revert back by saying this whole 60-minute thing was not only supposed to be about XRP. I do get all that, but a lot of the holders here were quite disappointed that ultimately you didn't really learn much from this. Again, if I was not really well aware, indeed, for the most part, it looks kind of misleading. It looks kind of like, hey, the SEC went after Ripple for this, that, and then an SEC guy is explaining that all of it is kind of like a fraud. It's all kind of basically bad. You might say it's duality. It's on the one hand, Brad Garlinghouse saying why it's good, and then the SEC guy saying it's bad. But Brad, for the most part, is just explaining whatever the situation is, and the SEC guy is just kind of picking his nose, saying random things like, oh, you know what, no, matter of fact, crime is way more rampant. Look through these freaking comments, right? I think for the most part, people found it disgraceful, and I really understand why. But again, my whole journey of watching this has been a little bit of up and down. I already went into it with really low expectations because of all the comments I've seen recently from you guys. But now from this, I understand more about why Elon Musk went for X, right? To kind of get rid of legacy media and to just make sure it's an unbiased view of things, because so many things here are wrong. There's a certain negative aura that I'm seeing over this now, which I really had not hoped to see. And indeed, it just shows the mainstream media manipulation that we often talk about. It was not properly balanced. I don't think this was a good interview ultimately, or I would say this was not a good episode from whatever I've watched, mostly because of the potential they left on the table. They, in my opinion, could have answered the core question significantly better had they tried. But a lot of y'all have got to remember, the goal here, as far as I understand here, is not to be accurate. The goal is to be a little bit accusatory for views, to be a little bit on the, I would say, on both sides of the spectrum. On the one hand of Brad, who's really quite bullish, in my opinion, really balancedly so, but really quite bullish. On the opposite side, John Reed Stark, who just starts blabbering on because it's way more interesting to watch. If you got somebody who's really just pro it and he's putting money towards a fair system, and then on the opposite side, you've got a guy saying, no, it's fake, there's scams going on, fraud and money. It's obviously way more entertaining for the average Joe than if two people are really agreeing with each other. That does make a lot of sense. And I mean, from their side, why would they explain all the basics? Why would they explain, oh, it was actually, it won the lawsuit, matter of fact, and that the SEC, because they're telling a part about that, is going after all these different companies. Mostly, it's actually a mistake, so to speak, that Trump's going to take him out for it. They kind of skip over all those parts, but I guess, again, for this whole 60-minute interview, from their side, it doesn't really matter because it's not the main message they're trying to go for. It's not the main message they're trying to portray. And again, controversy sells. It makes sense for them to skip over these, in my opinion, quite crucial parts just to tell a nicer, smoother story and have them really be opposites in that sense, really be both kind of heavy peaks. So if you've watched it thinking, that was kind of disappointing, remember that this is the legacy media we've often warned about that are are pushing stories and narratives that most likely you'll not agree with. But again, ultimately, we all know that the mainstream media is not necessary for this crazy growth. If you think about how many people know about these technologies, I don't watch mainstream media anymore for a long time, right? I get a lot of my news from X, which is funny because there's a lot of BS on there too, but this is just so much more, I would call it unbiased. There's a lot of bias, but let me just say, there's a lot more unbiased. There's just a lot more raw information, and you can make your own decisions, whether you like them or not. There's obviously biased opinion posts, but you can skip over those quite easily. Whereas with mainstream media, you get a sort of story spin to you. In this case here, I think a lot of the message here was just to make you more afraid of crypto and understand more that it's really manipulating the election in a negative way, instead of opening up for the freedom, which was sort of allowed from the start. In my opinion, a lot of these crypto pros are just that it gives freedom to people, even though it's in a really transparent and hopefully properly built way. But a lot of the blockades are coming from the regulatory side because they're not trying to put the proper rules in. And the interview is kind of the opposite, saying, well, these guys don't want any rules. It's all untraceable. It's only crime and all that. No, you see, they can't go against crypto because then they're not going to get any money. At least that's the vibe that I got from watching this. So I could also not really tell you that this was something really proper to give you from both sides. It did officially do it. They gave you both sides, but you can feel the underlying narrative right there. So I would understand why people are very much disappointed watching this, especially because this is what a lot of people now get to hear about that are not into crypto yet. Might make them a bit scared or make them, reassert their previous opinion of, yeah, you see, this crypto stuff is scary, right? And then you hear this SEC maniac say, you see, for this reason it's scary. Here's why. Matter of fact, we sued 130 companies, and you know what? They're removing Gary Gensler because they want to see Trump. He wants it to be outlawed. Anyway, I don't want to ramble on for too much. I'll talk later about Trump and the whole situation because I ultimately think this is going to be the golden ticket for us crypto holders. You'll understand why in a few hours. Put the notification bell on if you want to be notified whenever I upload something crazy like the video here. And let me know down below if you also agree with some of the crazy manipulation that's going on, man. I keep thinking about the 2021 bull run. XRP didn't go above $2, and I keep rethinking the lawsuit is finally over. People are way too bearish, man. A lot of the manipulation, a lot of the suppression, it's all gone. We're free from a lot of it. This whole case that's still going on with the appeal and stuff, it's going to be thrown out soon enough, I believe. But we are just scarred a bit from all the manipulation we've seen before. And this Korea wound, this Korea situation now, it reopened some of the thoughts that people had about what if there's a bigger mission going on to push this all down. I don't want to be the guy to tell you that something's being pushed down here. Just want to tell you that it's a very interesting situation. And yeah, I noticed a lot of manipulation myself. Well, let me know down below if you do as well.